Hey there, Thrivers. Today we're diving into what makes a truly effective manager. And I promise you, it's not about fancy titles or having the biggest office. You know what it's really like? It's like being a gardener. Stay with me here, because this analogy is going to tie everything together. When I first became a manager, I approached my team like a novice gardener who had just read every gardening book but never actually tended a plant. I had all the tools, I had all the theories, and an unwavering vision of what my garden should look like. In my mind, every plant needed to grow upward, reach for the sky, and become the tallest version of itself. I was perfectly focused on one plant. Let's call her Sarah, a healthy, thriving perennial that produced beautiful, reliable blooms. But I wasn't satisfied. In my grand vision, Sarah needed to grow taller, to branch out more, perhaps even become a climbing vine that could support other plants. Armed with my gardening manual and a premium fertilizer, I created an intensive growth plan. I would stake her stems to grow upward. I would prune her in specific ways and train her branches along the paths that I had predetermined. After all, isn't that what good gardeners do? Make their plants grow bigger and reach higher? But Sarah was resistant to my well-intentioned meddling. While she remained healthy, she showed no interest in becoming the climbing vine that I had envisioned. Instead, she seemed content to grow outward rather than upward, spreading her roots deep in creating a strong foundation. One day, while I was fussing with yet another supportive stake, Sarah taught me something profound about growth. I noticed that while she hadn't grown upward as I'd planned, she had developed in other remarkable ways. Her deep root system was helping stabilize the soil for younger plants. Her wide spread provided shade and protection for delicate seedlings, and her consistent, beautiful blooms attracted pollinators that benefited the entire garden. That's when I realized my fundamental mistake had been trying to transform a perfectly healthy perennial into something that was never meant to be. In my zealous pursuit of vertical growth, I had overlooked the profound value of growing outward, downward, in all the directions that came naturally to each individual plant. This revelation transformed my approach to garden management. I learned that not every plant has its own natural way of growing. Some flourish as ground cover, creating essential foundations. Others thrive as supportive structures, growing tall and strong. And some spread outward, nurturing and protecting those around them. The true art of gardening isn't in forcing growth according to some predetermined plan. It's in creating the right conditions for each plant to grow in its own way, providing rich soil, a supportive environment, ensuring adequate light, opportunities for learning, maintaining proper moisture, balance, challenges, and support, protecting from harsh elements, removing obstacles to natural growth. Sarah continued to thrive. She became one of the most valuable plants in the garden. While she never became the climbing vine that I had initially envisioned, she developed into something even more important, a cornerstone of the garden's ecosystem, supporting and nurturing growth all around her. The garden taught me that growth isn't about forcing nature to conform to our vision. It's about understanding each plant's natural tendencies and creating an environment where they can flourish in their own unique ways. Sometimes the most powerful thing that a gardener can do is to step back and let nature take its course, watching with wonder as each plant finds its own path to growth. Think about it. A garden doesn't thrive just because you own it. It thrives because of consistent care, understanding each plant's needs, and creating the right environment. That's exactly what managers do. Hey, like and comment down below if you've experienced something similar in your leadership career. Now, let's break this all down into 4 key areas that every effective manager needs to master. I learned these the hard way, and trust me, there were some interesting disasters along the way. Number 1 is creating the right environment. So let me tell you about my biggest management fail. Fresh into my first leadership role, I thought that being a manager meant having all the answers and keeping very, very tight control. I was like a gardener who installed artificial lights. I controlled every drop of water, and I wondered why their plants looked stressed and wilted. Here's what I learned. You can't force growth, but you can create perfect conditions for it. First, let's talk about clear expectations. Imagining planting seeds without marking where they are. Chaos, right? That's what unclear expectations do to a team. Instead, try this approach. Start with the big picture. What's the end goal? Break it down into measurable milestones. Document processes, but keep them flexible. Revisit and adjust them regularly. I once had a team where everyone was working hard, but we were getting nowhere. Why? Because I hadn't clearly marked out the garden bed, metaphorically speaking. Once we created clear boundaries and goals, it was like watching a garden spring to life after the first rain. Resources are your soil, your water, and your sunlight. Your team needs the right tools and technology, access to training and development, and time for focused work, support from other departments. Now, about psychological safety. This is the climate of your garden. Too hot or too cold and nothing grows. So here's how you can create it. Celebrate mistakes as learning opportunities. Share your own failures openly. This endears trust. Encourage experimentation and defend your team from external pressures, and create spaces for open dialogue with your team. Number 2, understanding individual needs. Remember Sarah? Let me expand on this. Sarah was my sunflower. She bloomed with daily check-ins, verbal praise, and collaborative projects. She'd light up during team meeting and generate amazing ideas through discussion. My other team member, Mike, he was what I considered my reliable cactus. He would practically disappear if you put in too many meetings, but give him a complex problem and some space, he'd come back with a brilliant solution that none of us had even considered. So here's how to adapt your management style. For your sunflowers like Sarah, schedule regular face-to-face time, create opportunities for group work, provide immediate verbal feedback, and foster networking opportunities for her. Assign a mentor. And for your cacti like Mike, use asynchronous communication tools, provide written documentation, give advance notice for meetings, allow private processing time. This is how cacti think and process. The game changer came into my management career when I started asking every team member these questions. How do you prefer to receive feedback? What does support look like to you? When do you do your best work? And what drains your energy? So just like plants, people will tell you what they need if you pay attention. And this is where consistent care and communication comes in. Let's talk about what consistent care really means. It's not just about having regular meetings. It's about creating rhythms that work for everyone. Daily care, quick check-ins, like morning garden inspections, removing immediate obstacles, celebrating the small wins, being available for urgent issues. Availability is really important for team members. Weekly care. This is your one-on-ones with your direct reports, team progress reviews, resource checks, knowledge sharing sessions, and then your monthly care. Create development discussions, strategic planning, team building activities, skill development workshops. I learned this lesson when my team was struggling with a major project. Instead of waiting for our scheduled meetings, I started doing daily 10-minute stand-ups, just like checking your garden after a storm. These quick checks helped us spot issues before they became problems. The key is finding the right balance. Too much attention can be as harmful as too little. Just ask anyone who's loved a plant to literal death. And this brings us to growing together. This is where the actual magic happens. When you've created the right environment, when you've understood the individual needs, and you've provided consistent care, you start to see something super beautiful, mutual growth. So let me share a story that changed my perspective forever. There was this junior team member, Alex, who always asked why we did things a certain way. At first, it was kind of frustrating, like having that persistent weed in your garden, but why? But then I realized these questions were actually making me better. Alex's curiosity led us to streamline our monthly reporting process. It allowed us to discover new collaboration tools, and it questioned and improved outdated practices and created better documentation. All because of one question: why? Growth indicators to watch for are team members teaching each other, spontaneous innovation, increased problem-solving confidence, better work-life balance, higher quality outputs. And with all that, we enter the growth cycle. Think of your leadership journey as seasons in the garden. So in spring, this is when we set our goals, planting seeds of innovation, energizing the team. In summer, we're watching our projects flourish. We're supporting rapid growth, and we're protecting from the inevitable burnout. And in the fall, this is when we harvest results, celebrating achievements, documenting lessons that we've learned over those previous 3 seasons. And in the winter, that's when we reflect on everything. We begin our planning stage, we build our foundations, and we start to prepare for new growth. Remember, becoming an effective manager isn't about being perfect. It's about being present, being authentic, and being committed to growth, both yours and your team's. Just like every garden has its own personality, every manager develops their own style. The key is to stay true to these core principles while finding your unique way to bring them to life. So, what is your experience with management? Drop a comment down below and let's share our garden wisdom. Are you a sunflower manager or more of a cactus cultivator? Let me know in the comments. And remember, for more leadership insights, like if you like, sub if you sub, and if you share, please share. I'm Thrive. Bye.